This is Writers Not Writing, the show where you can get to know your favorite writers and soon-to-be favorite writers by listening to them confess to the ways they procrastinate. Thanks for procrastinating with us. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. And each week we have a secret word to listen for. If you catch it, you earn the right to take an extra break at the time of your choosing from whatever is stressing you out. From Not a Pipe Publishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing. Today's secret phrase is Taylor Swift.
If I take my time.
Welcome, everybody. It's just me and Doug this week due to a little scheduling challenge for one of our authors, but I'm excited to have you all here. I think it's going to be a really good show anyway. We've got a good plan for you. First thing that I wanted to share is those of you who are regular listeners may know that a few weeks ago, I asked for your help in coming up with a last name for Doug. Doug is our wonderful producer who does such an excellent job of getting the show together. But one of Doug's challenges, I don't know if it's a challenge, but one of the things that Doug brings to the table is that Doug is fictional. And as a consequence, we're still trying to figure out a little bit more about Doug. And we've got a last name. So after much contemplation and a lot of wonderful suggestions from a whole writers group that one of our previous guests, Karen Eisenbray, is involved in, looking over all the various folks who we've had on the show and thinking about that, Doug and I discussed it, and we came upon the name Caldwell. And that is no relation to Giancarlo Caldwell, who was a guest on the show. They're not related. But Caldwell's a great last name for Doug, because that way Doug can send out emails. It is not a name that sounds particularly unbelievable or unusual. At the same time, it is not the most common name, and it goes back to the British and literally means cold well. So there's not like some a particular unusual strange meaning there besides what is it seems very straightforward and believable. So Doug Caldwell was going to produce the show, and he and I are our only guests for today. And we are both dressed up in costume, of course, as we always do for this show. In this particular case, my costume is a consequence of a shopping trip yesterday. I was going shopping with my fiance, Crystal, and she was looking for soft blankets and found them. It was a successful venture, but while we were out, she also found these deals on sweaters. And so she found this sweater for me, and I was like, I like it. I'm discovering late in life the value of wearing soft things. So I'm wearing more sweaters now, thanks to Crystal. And picked this one up, and then I got in line with her, and I said, come to think of it, like this sweater kind of, especially if I'm wearing the wool coat over it, is the same costume that Chris Evans wore in the movie Knives Out. And she was like, yeah, I'm well aware that when I saw that was not unbeknownst to me. So apparently I am cosplaying as Chris Evans, and Crystal is a big giant Chris Evans fan. So no accident that she is dressing me as Chris Evans. But it's a very comfy sweater. So I'll go for the comfy sweater look. And then Doug is wearing the same costume that Benoit Blanc, the detective in Knives Out, wore, which is a white shirt, and then his sleeves rolled up, and then his tie tucked into his shirt in this pretty hilarious way. Great character, Benoit Blanc. And you're absolutely rocking it, Doug. That is, it looks like you're going to start speaking in a Cajun accent and various malapropisms and solve a murder mystery at any moment. So nicely done there. So Doug and I were discussing what we would do for the show today, since our guest couldn't make it, and we are getting into the season of greed and venality that is the predecessor to Christmas. We are nearly to Black Friday. And many of you will be gathering with your loved ones on Thanksgiving to discuss all things, family, and not discuss all the things that you don't want to discuss with family. And one of the ways that you sometimes can postpone those or prevent those uncomfortable conversations with family is to talk about Black Friday. This is what Madison Avenue has provided us as an out on Thanksgiving. What are the things that we are wanting for Christmas? Which Christmas, as many of you know, is largely a construction of Madison Avenue as well, at least in the United States. So we have Black Friday to look forward to, and that means we have to come up with our Christmas lists. And I am really bad at this. I am very, very hard to shop for because, for one thing, as a writer, and again, not to get into process, this is a show about procrastination, but writers need very few things. Once we have our, computer, some writers write on notebooks. I'm not particularly a big notebook user. I tend to compose on the computer itself. Some poets I know are really into fancy pens and stationery and that kind of thing, and those are great gift items for their loved ones to think about for them. But for me, there's not a lot of writery things that anyone can give me that will help with my day-to-day writing. What I really need is time, and if somebody can figure out how to manage that, that'd be wonderful. So I really struggle when somebody says, "What do you want for Christmas this year?" I'm like, I don't really need anything. And yet people think of great things anyway. But this year I was trying to think of something that would be a good gift for me as a writer. And I thought I would share my Christmas list and some ideas for things for others as well. And then maybe because of the show, because of the tens of you who are listening, maybe somebody out there has a connection and can make some of these happen. And that would be fun to actually have some of these either, to receive them, of course, would be really cool, but even some of the ones that are for others, I thought would be really fun. So I'm going to share my Christmas list and Doug's Christmas list. Crystal had a couple ideas that she wanted to add, so we've got some ideas of my fiance's as well. So this is what we would like for Christmas. The first one's super practical, and this is what I asked for last year as well. I want a membership to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association, a SFWA membership. This is a very easy thing to ask for. You have to qualify by selling a certain number of books, and no problem. Got, I qualify. I've sold enough science fiction and fantasy titles to become a full SFWA member. But humble brag. It's a small number. It's not really a big humble brag, but I would like to be a member of that organization. But one of the things we learned last year is that it is easy to ask for that, and is easy for somebody to say, yes, I would love to get that for you for Christmas, but there's paperwork you have to fill out. And so if you don't fill out the paperwork in conjunction with the person, which kind of ruins the surprise, then that's not going to be the gift you receive. So I think I'm going to have to actually help somebody out with becoming a SFWA member. But here's where you all can help. If I get my SFWA membership, I would really love a Nebula Award, which is one of the awards that is given out by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Association. So if any of you for Christmas want to nominate any of my books for a Nebula, that would be very, very cool. I would appreciate it. I've mentioned on the show before, I would like more music for the show. We have our intro music, and we have the music that we use during the commercial break, and it would be cool for Doug to have more to choose from and more to run during some other sequences. Last week when Dan was on, Doug added a little Foley work. We had some applause, but I would like to have some songs by some other artists, and the whole point of the show is to promote authors and poets, and I would like to be promoting musicians as well. So if you are in a band, you know somebody who makes music, that would be cool to have some more music to contribute to the show. Also, art. I would love to have more fan art of my own works, of the works by other Not a Pipe Publishing artists. This last couple weeks ago when I had my book launch, we had some amazing fan art from Michaela Thorne, who's a really talented artist. You can see some of her prints for sale on the Not a Pipe Publishing store. She's really does really cool stuff. And it just got me thinking that I would love more of that. So if you are an artist or you know an artist, fan art is a really cool thing for authors to receive. So that would be great. So either fan art of mine or of my characters, the scenes in my books, or the other authors from Not a Pipe Publishing. That would just make their year. Doug Caldwell, our producer, Doug, has said he could use some help producing this show. And so if you know a producer, somebody who wants to, get involved in that, that would be really cool to have somebody else who could give Doug a break occasionally and assist in the production of the show. It's not an overwhelming amount of work. We're not talking about a full-time gig or anything. But if somebody's got that kind of skill and wants to also contribute to, reaching out and building the show, that would be great. So if you know any audio producers, video producers, somebody who'd like to be involved in the show in that way, that would be really cool. Crystal also suggests I should get a pet raven. And I think a raven would be cool, but a murder of crows would be cooler. I don't know that I would need to keep them in any kind of contained way in, an aviary or something. But if you have any suggestions about how I could acquire a murder of crows who hangs out around my house, and could be my friends, that would be I would like that. The other thing I asked for last year and didn't get, because I didn't get the right paperwork to the right people, I would like to get a lifetime membership or to OEA Retired. So this is the Oregon Education Association is my union, and you can be a member even after you retire as a teacher. In fact, that's a really good idea to maintain your membership and maintain your connection with other educators and continue to support people in the profession. And that's something I would like to do. And it's a steal of a deal because instead of paying your membership fees for the rest of your life, you can get a lifetime membership, and you can get it while you're still, in the profession. And then as soon as you retire, you're a member of OEA Retired forever. So smart. So that's one of the things I would like for my Christmas gift. Crystal had a couple others. She would like the ability to talk to animals. I'm not sure if that's something any of you, like if there is like a, Babel for that or something. But if any of you know a way, classes, if you know a magician or a witch, somebody who could provide that, Crystal would appreciate it. She also would like a padded room, but she wants to be clear what she means by padded room. She does not mean something institutional. She does not like the idea of a straitjacket. She doesn't even like those cool weighted blankets because she gets really hot at night, and she says you feel really hot, and then it wakes her up to toss them off. But she would like a room where they're all what she means by padded room. She would like a room where there are all kinds of textures that she likes. So a ton of blankets, hence our shopping trip yesterday, big soft blankets. But she also would like on the wall. You ever seen those T-shirts where if you rub your hand down them in one direction, all the little round beads flip in one direction, it forms one image, and then if you rub your hand in the other direction, it forms some other image, and often people will play with it and it'll have like two messages or whatever. She loves the way those feel, and so one wall of those would be really cool. Different textures in her padded room. Maybe a velvet kind of wall, and then like a wool wall. So things that are, but it would have to be a very specific softness. She's got a real tactile thing. It's got to be comfortable for her, because there are some fabrics, you should see this, where she'll touch them and just yank her hand away and go, oh no, and she has been teaching me so that I can identify these. There is a certain kind of softness that is sticky softness. It's this very artificial plasticky softness that you find in some blankets now that are mostly made of I don't know what kind of plasticky fabric, and she just recoils. So finding the right fabric, and then the way that the fabric is cut, there are certain lengths that feel soft, and there are certain lengths that feel fuzzy in a positive way, and then there's this in between that she really doesn't like, and so finding the right kind of fabric for her padded room, she would appreciate that. Last week I had a guest on, Dan McCoy, and Dan is a former writer for The Daily Show who was on this incredibly successful show for many, many years, and very successful in that, and now finds himself in this position where he's going, and what do I do now? And is looking for work. So if you know somebody who writes for hires the writers for a successful comedy TV show, Dan could use at least a call, an interview. So we'll reach out to Dan. And then for one of our guests the week before, Kate Rista, Crystal and I were talking about what she would like, and she's got this great job as the executive director of Willamette Writers, a local writing organization, and she's writing, and she's a spouse and parent, and it seems like everything is pretty put together in Kate's life. But she's just a delightful person, and we decided what she really probably would want for Christmas is a unicorn. So if any of you know of a real full-on magical unicorn, Kate should have one. I mean, it just feels right, and anybody who knows Kate will go, yeah, Kate needs a unicorn. So please let her consider that when you are doing your Black Friday shopping. If you come across the right real unicorn, Kate could use one of those. For my previous guests, we struggled to think about other previous guests and what they might like. So instead, I'll put the all call out there to them. If they would add, what is the thing that they would like for Christmas? I would love to hear in the comments or on social media. But kind of here's an all call kind of shout out. What are the various things that our previous guests would like for Christmas? That would be really cool to hear. Speaking of guests, Crystal and I were also talking about who it would be great to have guests on the show, and we came up with a list. This is not in any particular order, or I shouldn't say it's in a haphazard order, in the sense that as she was going through and thinking of people she would like me to get to talk with on the show, that she'd like to hear on the show, that they were coming in that order, and then often they would remind me, and I would think of someone else and I would add them. So the first folks she thought of were Hank and John Green, who would be amazing. That would be really, really fun. I've read and thoroughly enjoyed books by both. They've had quite a year, Hank overcoming cancer and John transitioning from a particular position in their company and kind of retiring to now go be a full-time author, which is every author's dream to some extent, even though he has had a successful career already. Getting to go back to writing is cool for him. So they would be great to have on and get to talk with them about how they put incredible hours into creating all of their online content. How do they still find time to write? I would love to hear how they find time to write and what they do when they are procrastinating. So that would be cool. I would love to have Roxanne Gay on the show. I know that she teaches in addition to her writing, and puts out a newsletter that the Audacious Roundup that I really enjoy, but I would love to have her on. She would be really fun. Fonda Lee would be really cool. I know that she's got a lot going on in her life too. There are these little, hints about some big developments with some of her writing, maybe coming into some other forms. But if we could get Fonda Lee on the show, that would be very cool. N.K. Jemisin would be amazing. I know that she does some teaching as well, and her books are some of my favorites. I'd love to have her on. Anthony Doerr, Marissa Meyer, who wrote the Cinder series. I would love to have her on. Rebecca Solnit. I've quoted her in a couple of my own works. Somebody I deeply respect. Margaret Atwood. I would love to have Margaret Atwood on. I went and saw her speak once, and that would be really cool to get to have a conversation with her. Ta-Nehisi Coates. If any of you know Ta-Nehisi Coates or could reach out, I would love to get to have Ta-Nehisi Coates on the show. He is somebody I deeply admire, and also I think we would just get a kick out of. I would get a kick out of him anyway. He and I have a lot of similar tastes, comic book nerds and writing nerds, and so I think he would be really fun to talk to. Martha Wells of the Murderbot Diary series just seems like somebody who would be a riot. I would love to have her on. John Scalzi, love his work. I love that mixture of great action writing and humor. He's so funny. So he would be really fun. Hugh Howey, read his trilogy this last year and thoroughly enjoyed it. Patrick Rothfuss, I know that Patrick Rothfuss must get very tired of people asking for the next book in his series. And maybe if I promised him with some kind of blood oath that I wouldn't hector him about that, maybe he would be willing to be on the show. Nnedi Okarafor would be cool to have on the show because she just seems like a really cool person, very talented writer and brilliant and fun on the social media as well. And she's always got some new thing going on with a comic book or a potential for a series or whatever that's happening. Her career is very exciting, so I would love to hear what's going on with her. Dolly Parton has written books as well, but as a songwriter, I'm trying to branch out beyond just novelists. And I'm reaching out to folks who are doing other kind of writing. We've had poets on. We've hopefully lined up some bloggers to have them on soon. And I've had one songwriter on, but I would really enjoy having other songwriters on. And the first that came to mind was Dolly Parton. That would be an amazing experience to get to have Dolly Parton on the show. Barack and Michelle Obama have both written books. I would love to talk with them about what they are doing when they're not writing. They just seem like they would have a lot to say about what's going on in their very busy lives. So if any of you know Barack or Michelle, I would love to have either of them on as guests. I'm not sure who maintains the account for Eve 6, the band Eve 6. It's either Max Collins or John Siebels, who's tiny. But that is a band. Eve 6 is a band that I just love to see, and I really admire the songwriting, which they would probably be humble about because they make fun of their own work, as merely 90s pop alternative. But the songs are really well constructed and super fun. So I would love to have them on the show. So if Max Collins or John Siebels, Tiny, want to be on the show, I would love to get to talk with them. And then Crystal says I should get Taylor Swift on the show. I don't know Taylor Swift's oeuvre nearly as well as Crystal or most humans on the planet appear to, but certainly somebody with an admirable songwriting career, and I guess she's been pretty successful. So I would love to have Taylor Swift on the show. That would be cool to hear what she's doing when she's not writing. Actually, in Taylor Swift's case, I might want to ask about how she finds time to write amongst all the other things that she is doing. So that would be cool. And Michael Ian Black is somebody that I've seen live, a comedian I've seen live, and read his book, one of his books, and he is very funny, and I really enjoy his podcast where he breaks down classic literature, and in the podcast Obscure, because he did Jude the Obscure as the first book, and so I would love to have him on the show. I think it would be really fun. The McElroy brothers, of course, I know they have their fourth graphic novel coming out, and Justin's got a book out with his wife Sydnee for Sawbones, so they are certainly writers, and that they would be really a kick to have on with their dad Clint. I would love to have all four of the Adventure Zone guys on. So if any of you know the McElroys, have a connection, let them know. It'd be really fun to have on the show. So yeah, those are the folks that I would like to have as guests. So if any of you can make those connections, I'd appreciate it. I also have always wanted to have a tower on my house. My house is not anything special. In fact, it is one of those little houses made of ticky-tacky where in driving down my street, I have passed my own house before because they all look the same. And yet my house is built in this valley where if you built a tower that was only 3 stories on the back of my house, you would have the most amazing view. And then I could have, kind of garden parties, and people could go up onto this rooftop tower in the backyard. So this is something I have seriously considered, and I know, people think I'm kidding. I'm not. I want to build a tower on the back of my house. So that would be, if you know somebody who is in the tower construction business, and you would like to contribute to that as a Christmas gift, the tower on the back of my house would be really cool. If, on the other hand, we could go bigger. One of my dreams, and I told Crystal about this on our first date, and that is a measure of the relationship, that she didn't decide that I was too absurd and run screaming, but instead really loved this idea. I would love someday to have a castle. And I would, modernize the interior of the castle such that it would not be freezing cold in the winter. Some nice drywall on the inside of those stone walls with insulation, but still, fireplace, and all the amenities that would make a castle truly a castle. A murder hole, moat. Drawbridge would be really great if it's one that has a drawbridge. Portcullis, regardless, gotta have a portcullis. And so if you have a line on a castle that you could give me for Christmas, that would be really cool, and I would turn it into a writer's retreat. I have thought about dreaming about building one in some other country. Here in the United States, considered building a castle here in the US. Right now, our political situation is fraught enough. International listeners are probably more aware of this than Americans. It's hard to sometimes see ourselves, from the inside. But I certainly am getting that feeling that it might be time to hightail it, or at least not construct a castle here and be bound to it. Because it's not for realistic defense against a fascist government. So if Scotland, Ireland seem like places where I might find a castle, or you might find a castle for me, that would be really great. If I were to be constructing one, I might think about New Zealand. New Zealand sounds really nice. And weather is certainly a factor as well. Chile, I'm not sure what their political situation is right now, but Chile has got the kind of weather I like, very green, hilly. The challenge with Chile is I can't call it chili. That just sounds wrong to my ear. It kind of drives me crazy as a Spanish speaker. And Crystal can't stand it when I pronounce things in Spanish correctly while speaking English. That irritates her. So if we lived in Chile, I think it would bug her. And she said, yeah, that one would bother her. Not as much as when I roll my R's. That one really drives her nuts. Every time she gets a churro, I'm like, it's a churro. And she's like, no, it's churro. And I'm like, and then she's like, So yeah, I don't think that a Spanish-speaking country, she would just have to get over it if we were to move to like Chile. But I think that would be a place with very similar weather to the Pacific Northwest. It's mountainous, it's rainy, beautiful. So yeah, maybe Peru, but probably Chile. I think that would be really cool. So maybe I could build if you could build me a castle in either of those places, that would be really appreciated. If we're going big, I've always thought it is a wonderful idea for a venture to build a space elevator. And if folks don't know what a space elevator is, this is an idea that came about via science fiction, as many of these ideas do, and yet is something that is being realistically considered. It is basically a cable or series of cables that are connected to a satellite in geosynchronous orbit, in a fixed orbit. And you'd want to place this. I'd probably want to place the base of it on an island, so that if there were ever a disaster, if it fell, nobody would have to worry about the cable, destroying cities or anything. This would be a lot of weight. But you connect the cable to the Earth and to this satellite, and you power the satellite with solar power so that it is continuously projecting, the necessary force to keep itself in its position, and keep that cable taut. And then you use that cable to raise and lower materials. And we have not, my understanding, and I am not an engineer, is that we don't have the materials to build the cable strong enough and light enough presently, nor do we have the systems to get things up and down that cable. But there are people working on it. And in fact, some of the most interesting work is realizing we wouldn't need rocket-powered anything. You could actually build robots, and they're modeled after one of the things I was reading. Don't know if this is, where the work is on this, but one of the things I was reading is that the robots are modeled on essentially great apes, and they, like an ape, climb like this, one arm over the other, pinching onto the cable, and they climb the cable, and it takes far less energy, less waste than shooting a rocket into space every time you need to get a load up into space. And I think the way I would fund this whole thing, if you can provide the startup for my Christmas present, is I would make the place that is the satellite in space a hotel for the extremely, wealthy. And they can go and they can have their, hey, I'm going to go up to space for a few days. They don't have to get into a rocket ship. They don't have to get themselves incredibly sick experiencing those Gs. There's a very slow trip up this cable. And then they get to hang out in zero G at this very fancy hotel with all the amenities. But the benefit for the wider world is that then becomes the dock, the launching off point for governments to rent the ability to carry these huge amounts of weight into space, where now they don't weigh anything. And you can build your ships that will then go to the asteroid belt or Mars or Titan or Io or whatever. And so I think a space elevator is in our future. And I think whoever has that and that means to get things up and out is going to be very successful. And I would love that. So if you would like to give me a space elevator for Christmas, I would appreciate it. I understand that may take some years. So you could get me like a little just a piece of paper and write on it like IOU1 space elevator, and that would still be a very nice gift. You don't have to actually complete the construction by Christmas. I think that's absurd. Nobody's going to do that. But like a nice card promising me a space elevator, I think would be really cool. As an author, I would like 1 million readers of my books. And I don't think that that's excessive. There are 350 million people in the United States. So this would be 1 out of every 350 people you meet has read one of my books. That would be fine with me. Like, I really don't need everyone to have read my books. But if 1 out of every 350 people in the United States would pick up just one of my books, whether it's I've written sci-fi, I've written contemporary fantasy, some religious satire, a couple books of poetry, so whatever folks are into. But if 1 out of every 350 people would read one of those, the point of writing and publishing is to be read, right? This is not just an exercise for my mental health. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I don't knock folks who write for themselves, but if I am writing to be read by others, right? I would love to be able to engage in conversation. And I do think there is a benefit to having a much larger number of readers, not just, so that you're paying the bills this is not purely venal. It's so that there would be more people with whom to engage in those conversations. The books are about sharing ideas, sharing stories, sharing characters, and then to be able to talk with people about who did you identify with, and how does that connect with your life, even though these circumstances that these characters in are so outside of our universe. I just think there'd be a lot of joy in getting to talk with lots of readers. So if you could do your part to just wrangle 1 million people, that would be really cool. And anybody outside of the United States is a bonus. Like that'd be wonderful. I mean, I'll take 1 million readers in any country. In fact, if there's 1 million readers in a country that's much smaller, and therefore that million is a higher percentage of the population, I'm absolutely comfortable moving there, traveling there, whatever is required of those 1 million people. They become the people for whom I write, right? So I'll go where the fans are. But yeah, if you know 1 million folks who'd be willing to read my books, I would really like that. Another thing that authors often want is for their works to be converted into another medium. And, the most common is, oh, I'd like to have this book of mine made into a movie. And I think that, like my first novel, The Sum of Our Gods, would make a really good movie. Corporate High School would make a really good movie. The Digital Storm, I've always thought would be really good as a film length story, right? It would take 2 hours to tell it, but it would work really well computer animated because it is all set in this digital environment where many of the characters are artificial intelligence programs interacting, and so I think that would be really cool. Be fun. Might be a little less expensive than trying to build the sets of a fake world where things don't operate by our laws of physics. So a computer animated version of The Digital Storm would be fun. I do think my current series would work better as a series on some streaming service rather than as a film. The Convention of Fiends is the name of the series, and the first book, Don't Read This Book. It's a tome. It's 130K words. It's a big book and covers a lot of ground. You might be able to pull it off in a kind of epic 3-hour film kind of a thing, but it's a little more intimate in its feel than that. A lot of the scenes are just a couple of people having a conversation. You've got some action set pieces where people are running away from another kind of monster or whatever, but a lot of it is this monster betraying this group, and so I think it would work really well as kind of a Game of Thrones-esque series. I'm in the throes of writing the third one right now, and there are a lot of scenes that would be really fun to see on screen. So if you know anybody who works for Apple in their entertainment division, or Amazon, I've got very mixed feelings about Amazon myself. Some of you are groaning right away, but the thing about the streaming services from like Apple or Amazon, they might not have the focus of Netflix in terms of we're here to bring shows to market because they've got Apple products to push, and they've got Amazon's got this global empire and world domination plans to enact. But it means that they've got more money than God, and so when they do decide they're going to make some kind of tentpole piece, they do really high quality work on those. I've been really impressed with Foundation and with the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon, and so that would be cool to see the really high production values and the excellent acting and stuff that they managed to wrangle. I'm leery of HBO Discovery, Warner Discovery right now. I don't know if any of you heard about this, but Dan McCoy mentioned it on last week's show and got me to do a little research, and they had a full-on movie in the can, done, polished, ready to go, Coyote versus Acme, something like that. And they shelved it so that the larger corporation could save some money on taxes. And it does make me a little nervous for writers out there in general, for artists, for actors, that a company would say, yes, we're going to make an entire film, and then go, no, we talked it over with the accountants and we do a little better. If nobody ever sees this thing, we declare it as a loss. Like that's a scary world for artists. A lot of people put a lot of time and energy and talent into creating a thing. And then, one talented accountant convinced one absolute talentless hack of a CEO that the better bottom line was to eliminate the product itself rather than produce the product and bring it to market. And that's a shame. So that does make me leery of, Apple, Amazon productions as well. Are we going to see that as something going forward? Well, they'll go, that's a good idea. Let's make things and then not give them to people and declare them as losses to balance things out and not actually make movies. We'll become like the tobacco farmers who are paid by the government to not grow tobacco. I would hate to have a situation where our media is composed of folks not making art in exchange for tax subsidies. So, if you know somebody from HBO Discovery who would like to pick up one of my books and turn it into a film, it's my first film, whatever. That would be very, very cool. But I would be nervous the whole time that at the end of the project, they would just say, nah, we save some money on taxes by not putting this out into the world. But, next thing on my list is not for me personally, Doug. So Doug is, a far more manly man than I drive a Honda, right? I'm wearing a soft sweater. Doug is a trans man who is, a far more cliche straight man than I am. And so Doug wants a truck. And Doug wants he's fine with it being a nice, shiny, new truck, which I don't even know this about trucks, but apparently they are very, very expensive right now. And so he wants a nice truck, but he wants a truck he can beat the hell out of. Doug is the kind of person where you call him up. I mean, this is kind of the difference between Doug and I. You call us up and say, hey, I need help moving. Both of us say yes. I say, but I do want pizza. Doug's like, you're providing beer. And Doug brings a truck, right? So Doug wants that truck. He wants the truck he can beat the hell out of while helping people move. He's the kind of person people call because they need to borrow a truck, and he actually shows up, right? Hence the kind of person who's helping me produce a show out of the goodness of his heart. Thank you, Doug. And so Doug would love to have a nice truck. So if you want to get Doug a real wonderful gift, a big, shiny new truck that will not stay shiny, right? Doug will actually use it. He would appreciate that. So see, we got that in there for you, Doug. And then another thing Doug and I were talking about, we would both like bit parts in Star Wars shows. And if they make a third Dune film, we've really enjoyed the first one, and we are very excited about the second. And we were looking at the guest list for Fan Expo and Rose City Comic Con. We go to those every year, and you get your biggest name folks. But when folks are in Star Wars, when they're in these amazing science fiction works too. Dune 3, I think that Dune series is going to be something very similar. You can then do the circuit and do signatures, even if you did not play the lead. And neither Doug nor I are going to carry something. Like, we understand we're not going to be, cast as the lead in anything. But we can play a bit part, totally. Not look at the camera and say our lines, right? And so if there's a director out there who's working on the next Star Wars TV show for Disney Plus or Marvel show, or especially Dune 3, that would be really cool for us. We would love to have some parts in those. And the reason we would like to get in on that circuit is then you're signing and at these cons. And you go back to the green room, and there's like Mark Hamill, Vincent D'Onofrio is going to be at Fan Expo Portland. Like, I would love an opportunity to get to meet those folks, just because, hey, I'm here signing too, right? And I don't know to what extent those folks all interact in the background, but I presume they can say hello to one another in the green room. So yeah, get me into those green rooms at those cons. Plus, I just love those cons; they're a ton of fun. Let's see. Reviews. So reviews are something that make a big difference to authors. And I've talked about this on the show before. But I would love to have more reviews of my books, reviews of the books for all the various authors we have on the show. If you've got a few minutes to just hop on there and go click and then write, this was really great. That really does help. Whether that's on Goodreads or Amazon or wherever people are buying their books, your local bookstore, if they have a review section, that can make just as big of a difference. It seems like it's smaller, right? Because it's the local independent bookstore, but that local independent bookstore, if they have a review section, people will take those reviews maybe more seriously than some rando that they didn't know. So who knows, right? It could make a difference. So do that. And then if you could review this show, there's somebody out there, two people. This is very annoying. There's two very annoying people who always thumbs down every episode of this show. And so what it means is, like, no matter what, 5 people like it and the 2 people down, and then it's like, the algorithm gods say, oh yeah, not, a lot of people don't like this show. which is incredibly annoying. And it also boggles my mind. Like, who is the person taking the time to regularly come back to a show they don't like to inform the world that they don't like it? This is somebody who has some weird vendetta going on, we know nothing about why. These could be people who don't like Doug. They could be people who don't like me. Because it is two every time, at least we know they're not people who dislike our guests, which is great, because I would hate for anybody to be downvoting a show where we're just getting to know writers, right? Why? Why would you go, I don't like this person? But somebody out there is this show regularly. So if you would counterbalance that by clicking that little thumbs up, that would be really great. But beyond that, I would love it if you would write some reviews wherever you listen to the show, watch the show, and let me know, because if I'm unaware of it because it's on some podcasting hosting app that I don't know about, I would love to start reading some of those. So if you do those on like Apple or YouTube, I'm more likely to be aware of them. But here's something I think would be fun as kind of a section in the show. I'd love to have some reviews to share. And if you know about this phenomena, there was an incident where people on Amazon were writing reviews for a t-shirt. And the t-shirt was Three Wolves Howling at the Moon. And all these folks were hopping on there and writing these just fantastic, amazing, hilarious reviews about how they purchased this t-shirt and it changed their lives. So what I'm asking you to do is write Three Wolves Howling at the Moon style reviews for the guests on this show. And so if you would hop on and say to any one of the shows we've had previously in the archives, or any of our future shows, and say, getting to know this particular author changed my life in the following absurd, hyperbolic way, right? That would just be amazing. And then I will read that on a future show. That would be really wonderful. So I'd love some of those reviews to share. Let folks know how the previous guests I've had on the show have completely changed your life. That would be really cool.
Hi, I'm Karen Eisenbray, and I wear a lot of hats. Wife, mother, church lady, writer, editor, punk rock drummer. I gave all my hats to Barbara, the main character of the Gospel According to St. Rage, and Barbara and the Rage Brigade. Barbara isn't your typical high school junior. She's been invisible since the 3rd grade. But when a magic hat brings her back into the light, Barbara is ready to take on the world. First priority? Start an all-girl garage band. Miraculous superpowers were never in her plan. But sometimes you get what you need. Bullies and school shooters don't stand a chance. Truth, justice, rock and roll.
So I think that's brings us to our final thing that I want to ask for, and this feels obligatory, but I think it's worth revisiting every holiday season. We're supposed to ask for peace on earth and goodwill to men, right? We'll move beyond the sexism there to peace on earth and goodwill to humankind. And I am skeptical of asking for this one, not only because it sounds like beauty pageant question answer, but because I've lived through a lot of Christmases, and I'm highly skeptical that the people who say this is something they want really do. The very people who will celebrate a Christmas service and say they want peace on earth, goodwill toward men, will turn around and often advocate for violence and general shittiness towards people. And that is something that is hard to watch. So I would love to be proven wrong this year. I really would. I would like everybody who celebrates Christmas, whatever that may mean to you, to incorporate into, hanging those Christmas decorations and killing a tree to put it inside, your house, which don't get me started. But if you kill a tree and put it inside your house and put decorations on it, and if you hang garlands and do all the Christmas stuff, please, please, please take the idea of peace on earth and goodwill toward humankind a little bit more seriously. I would love that. I would love a ceasefire in Gaza, a ceasefire in Sudan, where there is now a horrific war going on. I don't know the nature of the celebrations of holidays in all the various parts of the world where there are currently conflicts, but I know that many of the people in Russia celebrate Christmas, although Russian Orthodox, they celebrate it at a different day. But still, if part of the holiday for you is peace on earth and goodwill toward your fellow people, then please end your empire building and end the invasion of Ukraine. The skirmishes currently on the borders between India and China. I don't know the extent to which Christmas has become this kind of secular holiday celebrated worldwide, but if there are people in China and India who are motivated to celebrate a holiday that has been foisted upon them by colonialism and capitalism, perhaps they could also adopt a concern for peace on earth and goodwill toward men. If people who are living in China and recognizing the huge financial benefits of Christmas sales could also consider not invading Taiwan. That would be really wonderful. So I would love to have peace on earth and goodwill towards our fellow humans be something that people took seriously. That is, despite my own skepticism, it's on my list. It's something I would like. Last thing, and this is, I think at the end of each show, we give some advice. And so this is my advice to all of you. This is the gift that I would like you to give yourself. I want to encourage you to give yourself. And this is Crystal's idea, and I give her credit. Build a blanket nest. And what this is you get a whole bunch of blankets together on your bed, on the floor in your living room, whatever. And you create this nest of warmth and comfort. And then you make a real conscious choice of what you're going to allow into that nest and what you're going to keep on the outside. And inside that nest of comfort and warmth, you bring a book. You maybe bring a loved one, right? It could be a delightful, not necessarily spicy, but a romantic and a deep and lasting sense of romance time to just spend together in that blanket nest. You bring a beverage that brings you comfort. Maybe you like coffee. I'm not a coffee person. I'm not an eggnog person, but maybe you like eggnog. Maybe that is a comfort beverage for you. Love hot chocolate. Hot chocolate's a winner for me. Hot cider. Hot cider's feels very Christmassy to me. Pets certainly allowed. They are allowed in the blanket fort. Bring your cat, bring your dog into the blanket fort with you while you read a book. Don't bring in things that kind of compromise the sanctity of that comfort. Don't bring your phone. Don't have the TV on across the room. Anything that's going to connect you to work, anything that's going to have an advertisement in it. That's the point of an advertisement is to compel you towards some action, right? Go buy this, go do this, right? Don't let that into your blanket fort, right? This blanket fort is about hiding, right? Set aside some time to be in that nest of comfort and don't let anything else from the outside world in, even this podcast, right? Even a guy wearing a Chris Evans sweater. Like, no, sorry, Chris Evans sweater out, because you are not in this blanket of comfort, right? And build your blanket fort, defend your blanket fort, and enjoy some time, perhaps after Thanksgiving, perhaps during your holiday season, in that space of comfort and warmth and joy. That's what I would most wish for you for this holiday season. That's the thing that I would love to have you receive on my Christmas list. Thank you very much for joining us here on the show. Thanks to Doug for putting it all together, and we will see you with a different guest next week.